go over how to edit a picture that you might take from your sketchbook and refine it so that it has the right amount of contrast. So, meaning that it just has a white background with black lines on it. So, the first thing I'm going to have to do is crop. So, I have these edges at the top and bottom, a little bit side to side, and I need to go in and crop those out. So, I'm going to use this crop tool over here on the left. Before I do that, I'm going to zoom in slightly so that I can kind of see my image a little bit more. So the way that you use that is the magnifying tool and the zoom tool, and then you can click in there. So there's a few different ways that you can use the zoom tool. There's a few different ways I could use the crop tool. I could either come in here when it doesn't have a ratio set, and just kind of click and drag and move these things around as I want. Or if you're working with a square composition, you can set your ratio as 1:1 and then come over here and you can use the up and down arrow tool to slightly nudge, or you can grab these corners and move them in. So the first thing you want to do is just spend some time getting the image cropped exactly the way you want it. So that looks good to me. Maybe bring in this side a tiny bit. And then I can click on this move tool up here and the crop will be applied. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this image to be grayscale. So right now it's on this kind of warm tone paper and I want to eliminate that. So I'm going to go to image mode, grayscale, and I'm going to discard color information. The next thing that we're going to do is double click on this. So right now this is on a locked background layer, but I want to be able to edit it. So I'm going to come in and double click on that background layer and change it instead to be layer 0. And now you can see that that lock icon went away and now I can edit it. The next thing I'm going to do is try to make this so that it's just pretty solid black and white. So the way that I'm going to do that is by creating an adjustment layer. So I like to say that this looks like a black and white cookie, something like that. But I'm going to click on that adjustment layer and I see all the different options I have here for adjustment layers. The one that I'm going to use today is levels. So now my adjustment layer is open for I see the levels adjustment layer. And then there's also my, this properties window that should also pop up is going to give me a representation of my entire document as a graph. So over here is blacks. Over here is whites. So we can see this first peak of information over here, this black one, is all of these black lines that are in here. And then this other sort of peak of information around like 50% gray is all this background tone, all this paper color. So what I want to do is I want to click on these edges and then bring them in. So see just how doing that, all of my things that were maybe like 70% black before are now 100% black. The inverse of that, I can grab this one over here that was the paper tone and then bring it all the way over here till that background starts to fall away and I'm just left with line. So, you know, depending on your image, it might not work this smoothly. You might start to get an image where it's what's called that it starts to blow out, meaning that like in order to get rid of the background color, you're actually losing a lot of detail of the line. You don't want to have that happen. So say you find yourself in a situation where, you know, most of the image is pretty good, but there's maybe like some areas that you have to go in and clean up. So maybe we'll leave the adjustment layer right around there. And then I have to go in and just manually clean up these different areas. So one way that I could go about it is to use what's called the dodge tool. The opposite of the dodge tool is the burn tool. Basically what this does is it goes in and it lightens things. So if I click, I don't want to be on my adjustment layer, I want to be back on that layer 0, I can come in here with my dodge tool and I can go in and edit that. But you'll notice if I accidentally go over the lines, it's also going to dodge the line as well, which is not ideal. It's not what I want to do. So the way that I can undo that is to go to my history. So if your history window is not automatically open, the way that you can get it to open is go to Window and then History. So let me turn it back on. So I can see I went too far with that last step with the dodge tool, right? I want to go another step back. So I could keep doing this and just go, but like it's going to be a lot of detailed work, right? I'm going to have to go in between all these things. So a big part of learning Photoshop is just, anything that you need to do in Photoshop, there's like 8 different ways that you could do that. And sometimes it's just about learning what's the fastest way to do something. So I know that there's this tool that is appropriately named the Magic Wand tool. It selects similarly colored image areas, meaning that if I come over here and click on this gray area, again, make sure that I'm not on the adjustment layer. You always have to make sure that you're on the artwork layer, not that adjustment layer. If I come in here and click, see how it just went through and selected everything that was gray, but not everything that was black. So that was a pretty fast way. Let me drop the tolerance down slightly. So by dropping the tolerance, it's going to select less areas. So maybe that's a little too low. This is where the kind of like art of Photoshop comes in, that kind of subtlety, like what's the right selection tool, what's the right tolerance, all those kinds of things. So now this seems like it's set pretty good. What I can do on a Mac is hold down the Shift key and I can add things to that selection. So I can kind of go through and click all of those gray areas until everything's selected. You can see what's selected by what has these kind of dashed moving lines around it. And then I can come in here and hit the delete key. So you might get a little scared and just be like, whoa, everything went away and this checkerboard's here now. But the reason that that checkerboard is there is that's to let you know what's transparent in the image. So it's okay that we erased a bunch of white because we can get it back pretty easily. So the way that you get it back is you go to Layer and then Flatten Image. The one thing that's not great about that is it will merge your adjustment layer. But again, if you're just quickly, making these thumbnails and getting it onto Slack so that your classmates can see your concepts, it's not the end of the world to lose that adjustment layer. You would not want to lose that adjustment layer if, say, you were laying out like a book or a website and you had adjusted something to, say, have more yellow in it. You wouldn't want to delete that adjustment layer because you want that file to be fluid. You want to be able to go back at any point and change the color again. So this looks pretty good. Now let's see what we're working with image size. So if you go to Image and then Image Size, we can see right now that this image is 9 megabytes, or sorry, just shy of 9 megabytes, 8.39, and it's 2,966 pixels square. So what I can do is I can drop this slightly. Let's work with images for this that are 2,000 pixels. So I'm going to take a little bit of information away. So 2,000 by 2,000 pixels. This means it can show up on most people's laptop screens or large screens with a good amount of detail. And then I'm going to hit OK. The last thing that we need to do is save this image. So I'm going to do File, Save As, and you could either save to the cloud or save to your computer. I'm going to do a save to my computer. And you always want to give things a name, right? Because image 0423 doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to me now. It's not going to mean anything to me 3 months from now. So instead, I want to be really careful to give my document something that means something. So this to me was inspired by magnetic lines. So I'm going to maybe call it like magnetic drawing, something like that. We don't want to use JPEGs as a general rule because they do kind of some strange things to like file compression and color. So instead, I'm going to work with a PNG. This is also good practice. You don't want to have any spaces in your file names. You want to use dashes instead of spaces. The reason being is that spaces can sometimes lead to having corrupt files, which is the one we want to have. I'm going to save mine to the document, or actually no, let me do it to the desktop, and I'm going to hit save. So now my PNG has been exported, and I can head on over to Slack and put it up on Slack. So I want to head over to the appropriate channel. I'm going to use this line channel. I can open up my desktop Finder window, and then I can come over here. So if you're uploading 3 things, what you can do is you can just continue to drag and drop those multiple images in here until you have all 3 of the things that you're working with. You also probably want to put a description. And then once you have those things posted, you can hit send, and your thumbnails and your description text will be posted.